We put $800 of attachments on a PSA Dagger. Was it worth it? Is it overkill? We're gonna talk about the build list. But first, we just released a new magwell for this PSA Dagger. It's only for the compact. We'll have links down below if you guys want to check that out. Starting it off, what was the base for this project? We purchased a compact dagger from PSA. This is actually a full size, but we wanted to show you what it comes like from PSA. With the PSA Dagger, it's a Gen 3 Glock operating system. On this, we're going to have an optics cut for an RMR, suppressor height sights, and a threaded barrel. It's going to also come with a Magpul PMag. With this baseline build, it comes in at $420, which is really good for a threaded barrel optics cut option. If you're looking at a Gen 5 MOS without a threaded barrel, you're coming in at $620, so substantially more money, and you still have to buy a $100 to $250 barrel. So keep that in mind. Starting from top to bottom, we have a Holosun 508T. I decided to go with this optic because I wanted to try it out. It's solar charging. It's a nice titanium, big, blocky optic that is the same cut as a Trijicon RMR. For the price, it's cheaper than an RMR, and I really like that it has solar charging, and you can pull the battery out the side of the optic, so you don't have to pull the whole optic off to get to the battery like you do with the older Trijicon RMRs. With this build, it came with suppressor height sights, like I mentioned, that do co-witness with the optic, which is pretty nice. Not something that I care a lot about because I've never had an optic fail except for a SIG optic. So backup sights aren't really necessary. I have enough faith in it that I'm not too worried about it. Up next on the slide, like we said, it came with a threaded barrel. So we threw the Herrington Arms HGDG compensator on there. Obviously we make it, so this was the test gun for both the magwell and compensator. We got a lot of rounds through it now. It's been performing really good. This compensator puts all of its emphasis in the muzzle flip, which you'll see in some of the slow-mo. It does a very good job. I feel like I can shoot this gun one-handed better than I could shoot two-handed, some of the other guns that we have and that we make products for, Walther PDP. So I really enjoy this setup with the compensator and this optic. Moving down to the light, the Streamlight TLR1 HL. Put this light on pretty much everything, and there's a pretty good reason why. It's 1,000 lumens. It's not obnoxiously long. It's actually a little bit longer than the compensator. I really like the tactile switches. Unlike the Surefire X300, I just don't care for the switches as much. But as of now, the TLR1 has been my favorite light for like 3 or 4 years running. So there was really no competition for this build. One thing I actually forgot to mention is the Cogworks Gen 3 extended slide release. This is pretty nice. However, you may see in the clips when I was shooting, I was still getting hung up on this. The reason he extended it and put it all the way back is so that when you're shooting a factory Glock or PSA Dagger, it's pretty easy for your thumb to ride the slide release slide stop. So what you'll find happen is you'll be shooting and then it'll just lock back because your thumb was pushed up a little bit and it caught the slide. That still happened a little bit with this shooting today. For this video. Not the end of the world, just needed to shift my grip a little bit. But it is incredibly nice because it happens less times. And then when you also do a reload, if you get slide lock coming in and hitting this, it's a lot easier to hit because it's so much bigger. So you'll find that maybe your reloads are a little bit faster. For like $50, I think it's a pretty nice upgrade and it's definitely worth it in my opinion. Moving down the frame, we have the Factor Gen 3 Glock trigger. I really like this trigger. It's all aluminum. It's pretty nice, but there is one thing I will change about it, and we're going to be putting a lighter bar in this to go from what feels like probably a 6-pound trigger to a 3-pound trigger, maybe a 4-pound trigger. I'm not exactly sure what bar I want to go with yet. It was a nice upgrade going from the factory PSA hinged style trigger that is not great, kind of mushy. Not the worst in the world. It's pretty light and it has a good reset. But I don't like this hinge. Doesn't feel great in my hands. Whereas the Factor, this flat face, it's like a nice little radius. It's metal, so it just feels like a nicer trigger. But I did find that we're gonna have to lighten it up a little bit. For some reason, it got heavier going from the factory trigger to an aftermarket trigger. And all we changed was the shoe. I think it was like $114 for this, but it definitely feels a lot nicer when shooting on my trigger finger. Next up, we have a Tyrant CNC mag release that is extended. This is a Gen 3 Glock, so the mag release is still pretty bad. I don't really care for it. It is extended, so I don't have to push it in as far, which is really nice. I don't have to break grip to hit the mag release. It's got these aggressive texture on here, but it's still not good. I think the spring is way too stiff, and I think that's just a Gen 3 thing. I'm gonna have to see if somebody makes a lighter spring kit for that. So still not my favorite mag release, but it definitely helped over factory. Factory is incredibly bad. A little itty bitty square piece of plastic that you have to push all the way in until it like bottoms out to get this mag to drop free. I will say the full size feels a little bit better than the compact did when it came in. So I don't know if they maybe made some improvements, but it's still pretty bad. And of course we mentioned our magwell for the Dagger compact earlier in this video. We worked a lot on this magwell to get it perfect. It was probably 4 or 5 versions, different renditions of this to get the geometries right, to get it to feel good in your hand. You know, we added this flat on the back because we found that with how small the compact Dagger is, it would bite into the palm of your hand. So, you know, that was a big change. We changed the mounting solution to a 2-piece system. It makes it easier to install. It's a little bit easier for us to manufacture it. With this geometry, you have a very large funnel for the mag, and it's not a very big magwell. It's not a giant competition style magwell, but if you look at that, that's a lot of angular surface that is really going to aid in reloads when you're on the range and you have to do an emergency reload. It's just gonna help a lot, and it's gonna increase speed. If you look at the factory magwell, this is just a lot of stuff to get hung up on when you're trying to do a reload. I'm not a fan of these cuts. I know their purpose is to help strip the mag if it gets jammed. I get it, but they also do it on the back, so it's kind of redundant. And what you'll find is like these big kind of cuts in it, don't let them put a magwell in this. So there's no real magwell except for on the front and back, and it's just like 1/8 of an inch of taper. So it's pretty bad. I never got hung up too many times while doing reloads, but it happened enough that it was annoying, so we decided to make a magwell for it. And now it's a huge difference. One thing our magwell does different is it fills these and doesn't cover it. Some of the magwells we've seen, it just makes this like a big skirt around it. We wanted to make it look aesthetically pleasing and kind of fit the handgun. We think we accomplished that with this magwell. Last but not least, we're running a +2 Glock mag extension on a Glock mag. It'll actually work, no problem at all. You can run the factory Magpul magazine on this. We're working on, you can see here, a +5 that actually fits the PMag, so keep posted for that. One thing that PSA does is they ship all the daggers with a Magpul PMag, which makes a lot of sense because they can't just ship Glock mags. That's probably infringing on a couple trademarks. If you guys are interested in mag extensions for your mags that come with your PSA Dagger, keep an eye out for this. It's coming soon. So with all those components being added to this PSA Dagger, that's about $800 worth of attachments, which brings this build to just shy of $1,300. Would you put $800 on a $400 gun? They're asking $420 right now on the website. That's what we're going with. Do you guys think you would want to spend $800 on it, or would you rather put $800 into a Glock? Leave a comment down below. I'm really curious to see what you guys think. Is it justified to put that kind of money into a cheaper handgun? In my opinion, I think it is. You're gonna get a little bit better ergonomics. Some people may disagree, but when you hold a Glock, it's a little bit blocky, it's a little bit square. You feel each corner digging into your hand. Whereas with the Dagger, it's a lot more rounded. It feels pretty good. One thing I do notice, the compact, this little ledge here kind of digs into my finger, whereas on the full size, it seems like they made a little bit more clearance. They might have moved this down a little bit. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the different models for the PSA Dagger. But I'm gonna say it's got better ergonomics than a Glock. And if you can buy this gun for $420 and you can go buy a Gen 5 MOS for $620, you're gonna have the same money in attachments. So you put all this stuff, it's the same money in a comp, magwells are gonna be similar, trigger is literally identical, optic identical, so on and so forth. You're saving $200, you still get good optic, you still get good light, you still get a compensator, magwell trigger, all those things, but you save money. I think it's a pretty clear win. And you gain ergonomics. With this Dagger, it's gonna fit some Glock holsters. For me, it fits a couple holsters of mine, which is really nice. I don't have to buy a new holster. T-Rex Arms actually released a holster specifically for the Dagger. So who is the PSA Dagger for? Well, I think it's for people who actually wanna save money. You're gonna save $200 buying this over a Gen 5 Glock. What I really like about this is if somebody's getting into firearms, they're a new shooter, you can pick this up sometimes for $350, $400 and get into shooting with a pretty reliable setup on a very reliable platform. It's based on a Gen 3 Glock, so if you want to grow as a shooter, you know, maybe you want to throw a dot on, you can. Get a weapon light, you can. Get a trigger, you can. As you get better, as you grow as a shooter, you can work your way up to this, but you don't need to start at this. You can easily start shooting with this, get proficient, and as you get better, start adding weapon lights, optics, compensators, all those things. If you guys like this video, if you learned something, we'd appreciate a like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.